Hey everybody, welcome back to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com, and here on my YouTube channel, and this time out we're going to take a look at the brand new re-release of the SSL4000E channel strip by Universal Audio. We're going to compare this to the old version of this particular channel strip, and I'll show you the different features and why this new release is better in my mind than the old one. And we'll also listen to it on some drums, some bass, and some guitars, so you can kind of hear what it does. But before we get to that, if you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button below. It helps me out tremendously. Also, go out to facebook.com/homerecordingmadeeasy and follow me there. And for more tips, tricks, concepts, and training around all aspects of home recording, mixing, and mastering, please be sure to go back to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and check out all my training products, the Made Easy series and the Quick Mix series. It'll help you make better recordings, mixes, and masters in your home studio, I promise. So now let's head on over to Studio One. And what I have on the screen here is the new re-release of the Universal Audio Solid State Logic SSL4000E channel strip. Now, this channel strip has been around, or a version of this channel strip has been around on the UAD platform for about 10 years now, since about the beginning or middle of 2000. I'm not sure exactly what year, but I remember using it way back about 10 years ago on the UAD1 platform. And that channel strip looks like this. And I'm going to open that up and put it on the screen next to it so you can see both of them here. Oops, that's the wrong plugin. We're going to put it on the drum bus here. Here we go. So we have the new version and we have the legacy version, or the old version of this. So they're laid out the same, but there's some new additions to the new version. And I want to take you through those and tell you why this this particular new refresh of this plugin is really great, and to me far outweighs the old legacy version. So let me first walk you through the plugin and show you what the differences are. So if we take a look over here at the new one, over here in the top left hand corner, we have the new section to this plugin, which was not part of the legacy version, which is to the right here. This is the new preamp section, which now in this re-release, they have now modeled the preamp section of this SSL channel strip. Back on the legacy version, that was not part of the plugin, and mainly because back in the days of the UAD1 platform 10-12 years ago, the technology really wasn't there, nor was the DSP power in order for them to more accurately to model that. But now today, with technology and the computering power and the DSP power that's available to us, they were able to model the preamp section. And this, to me, is what makes the biggest change in this particular channel strip, and it adds so much more color and vibe. So you have two modes that you can be in here. On the top left hand corner, you have the line input, which is more of a transparent kind of a vibe, where you know, it's like the 1/4 inch input on the console. And then underneath it, you have the mic input. And this is really where the magic kind of happens. And what's great about using the mic side, if you really want that color and you really want some of that harmonic distortion, the more you push the mic input here in the red knob, the more color and distortion you're going to get, the harder you push it, which is great. And they also modeled the transformer. So when you're on the mic input, you see this little button here that says X-former. You can see it presses in and out. This is the model of the actual Jensen transformers in this particular console. So if you're on the mic side, you can engage the transformer there. So they're modeling that as well to get that vibe of that particular transformer. When you want to go back to the line input, you just hit the flip button, and as you can see, you can now go to the line input. And when you're on the line input, you can see that the X transformer button is disabled. Okay, so if you want more of a clean, kind of a transparent kind of a vibe, you would stay on the line side. If you really want to push it and get that color and that nice richness and vibe that the SSL is known for, you want to flip on the mic side, and then you can decide whether you want also to have the transformer modeling, which I always keep in, because why wouldn't you, right? Underneath that, we have the dynamic section, the compressor section, which is very similar, or pretty much exactly the same as it was on the legacy plugin. We have two modes of attack here. By clicking this little F attack, fast attack, we have the red light comes on, and this release becomes like a push pull, just like on the analog console. So we have a fast attack and a slow attack. There's no variable attack here. Now the fast attack on this particular console, I believe is, let me just take a look at my notes quickly here, is 3 milliseconds. So when you're in fast attack mode, you're in 3 milliseconds. When you're in slow attack or normal attack mode, you're at 30 milliseconds. Okay, so we have the faster or normal attack. We also have a variable release. Okay, we have a variable ratio from 1:1 to 20:1 and everything in between, and we also have our threshold here. That is the same that was on the legacy console over here to the right. You can see the dynamic section here. Underneath that, we have the gate and expander section, which is the same as it was on the legacy plugin as well. And then underneath there, we can either choose to have the dynamics in and out by pressing this button here. You can have the compression in and out, or the expander in and out here, which again is the same than it was on the legacy plugin. Underneath that, we now have the filter section here, which on the old plugin was in the top right hand corner, which is now taken over by the preamp section. But what's different about the filter section here is now you can put the filters pre and post the dynamics. So you can have the high pass and the low pass filter either before the compressor or after the compressor, which on the old version you could not do that. Okay, so that's a nice little feature here as well. I like to keep that in, and I like to do all my low cuts before my compressor. But you have the choice of either one now, which is really cool. Okay, over in the center section of the channel strip, we pretty much have the same setup as we did on the legacy plugin. To the right, we have our, up here in red, we have our high frequencies. This is plus or minus 15 dB from 1.5K to 16K, and it's a shelf, or you can make it a bell, no variable Q. In the green section here, we have our high mids, where we do have a variable Q, and we have plus or minus 15 dB from 600 hertz to 7K. Okay, and then underneath that, we have our blue low mid frequency here, again, plus or minus 15 dB, variable Q from 200 hertz to 2.5K. And then last but certainly not least, we have our brown knobs down here. This is our low frequency, just like the high frequency. There's no variable Q. It's either a bell or it is a shelf. And again, it goes from 30 hertz to 450. Now, just like on the legacy plugin, we have two styles of EQs. We have our brown style, and then if you click this button up here where it says select, you can go to your black EQs. Now, the difference between the two are the brown EQs, I tend to categorize those as a little more musical, a little bit more colorful, where the more you push it, the more color you kind of get. Where on the black EQs, it's a little bit more surgical, a little bit more transparent sounding. So there's just a little bit of a different sound characteristic. I tend to keep it on brown. This is what I like, but you have brown and black, and you had brown and black EQs on the old legacy channel strip as well. Underneath the brown low frequencies, we have our EQ turn on and off. We could do a side chain here, and then we could do pre-dynamics, meaning you could put the EQ before the compressor or after the compressor. Again, exactly the same as the legacy. Down here, we have a power button. Okay, and then one of the other biggest features to this refresh of this plugin is now we have, as you can see, a fader here on the side, which is not part of the legacy plugin. Okay, so now what they've also done is they've modeled the actual fader on the SSL console as well. All the circuitry and all the the analog goodness that happens in the fader we do now have on the new plugin. So the way this is kind of modeled is the more you push this particular fader and push it up, the more harmonic distortion you're going to get, a little bit more richness, a little bit more color, more of that analog kind of vibe thing again, okay? Just like on the console, you push this SSL, it's going to get more colorful and a little bit more vibey, okay? So as you're pushing this up and you're turning up your volume, underneath here you have this output knob here, as you can see. Now this is important because this is designed to be very transparent, meaning if you push or reduce the output level with this knob, it does not change the tonal characteristics of the plugin. Okay, so if you're pushing this fader up to get a little bit more, harmonic distortion, a little bit more color, you can compensate by now turning down the output so you can kind of level match the plugin. And by turning down the output, you're not changing what's going on here from a modeling perspective on the fader. Make sense? Okay, so that is kind of the difference between these two channel strips. Again, the big difference is the preamp on the input side and the fader on the output side, which was not part of the legacy model, as I said. So it has a lot more richness and it has a lot more audible difference, I would say, in this plugin versus the other one. So we're not going to listen to the old one because if you have Universal Audio and you have the plugins and you've already used it, you kind of know what it sounds like. But the new one is what we're going to listen to today. So what we're going to do is I put this basically on just 3 buses. I have a session here that has not been mixed yet. You can see we have no plugins across the mix except for a reverb on the snares, which I have right now. I have turned off because that's going to be for another video. And on our bass and on our 2 electric guitars, there's no plugins. This is a completely raw track. Inputted the audio imported the audio files, threw up the faders just to kind of get a rough mix. This is how I like to demo these kinds of plugins, because you can really hear what it does on a raw track as opposed to a finished track. It's a little bit more audible. So we're going to start off with our drums here. I'm going to mute our bass and mute our guitars. And here's what we have. And I will bypass this channel strip for right now. Here's what we have as far as our drums. Okay, now if I bring the plugin in, then I'll walk you through what I did to this as far as settings go. It's before, after. Okay, so here what I've done on this drum bus here is I've gone ahead and I've chose the mic input, as I said, and I have the transformer button modeled, so I get that take advantage of the modeling of the preamp section. Over here in the compressor section, I'm using a slow attack here because, again, the LED is not lit. I'm using a pretty quick release here. I'm using a 3-to-1 ratio, and I'm doing about 3 dBs of compression, which you'll see right down here on this amber LED meter. Okay, now over here in the EQ section at about 5K, I boosted up about 3 dB, and I have it on a shelf, so it's a shelf at 5K. I took around 350 to 400 hertz, about 3 dB out to get rid of some of that boxy and woofiness, because again, the drums are not mixed. There's no processing on them. These are raw tracks. And then I did a little bit of a boost at about 60 hertz at about 3 dB with a bell, just to give a little bit of thump to the kick drum. Pushing the console a little bit here on the color side, and then again, we can turn the output side down to compensate, so the level matching is kind of there. So if we start with it in and we just kind of bypass it on and off, or we can turn it on and off here with the power button. That's before. After. Before. After. So hopefully what you can hear there is you just hear a lot of color. The drums just seem to come to life more. It gets a little bit more present, obviously, because we did a little bit of boosting on the top end, and it just gets a more warm kind of a chewy, gooey kind of a vibe. I know it's hard to describe those kinds of kind of words, but it just sounds better, right? It just got that analog richness to it. It doesn't sound so transparent and so clinical sounding. Now, if I were to, this is on a slow attack. Now listen to what happens to the kick and the snare if I just go to a fast attack, how much it really affects it. You can hear how it softens things quite a bit. And you can see we're getting more compression. There's a slow attack. Fast attack. Okay, so that's on our drum bus. Now let's take a look at the same thing with our bass. Now I'll mute the drums here so you can really hear the difference. That's before. After. So what I like to do is I like to take down this output and I like to push the fader. Okay, so again, here I'm on the mic side, and I'm not really pushing it all that hard. If you really wanted to push a bass guitar, you could turn down the output fader. We could push this a little bit more. So you can start getting that distorted sound if that's what you wanted. You can see you're overloading it here. So every now and again, it's good to kind of, intermittently clip it for bass. It gives it that nice kind of rock bass sound. Okay, over here on the compression, I'm using a slow attack. This time I'm doing a little bit slower release on the bass. I'm doing about a 4-to-1 ratio and doing about 3 dB of compression on the heaviest notes. Again, let that transient kind of poke through. Again, we can turn the fast attack on and off so you can kind of hear the difference. You can hear how it softens that transient quite a bit. There's a fast attack. Slow attack. So it depends what you're going for. And there's no EQ on this at all. None at all. But I did do a filter. I did about a 20 hertz low cut filter and put it pre-dynamic. So I'm not the low cut is happening before the compressor. Again, we can push the console a little bit more. That's before. After. So again, if you wanted something a little bit more transparent, not so gritty, you would turn down the input on the mic side so you're not overloading the console. You'd maybe turn down the fader a little bit on the output side, and then you can crank up the output level to kind of level match the plugin. But you know, again, the whole point of having a channel strip like this, especially on like kind of rock music, which is what this track is, you really want to push the SSL. That's where the magic happens with this, is you want to be a little bit more aggressive with the SSL. So that's on a bass guitar. Now let's listen to it on 2 electric guitars. And again, these are not treated really in any way. And then we'll do bass, drums, and guitars together, and we'll turn them all on and off so you can hear the cumulative effect. So here's our electric guitars.
Somebody help me, I'm stuck in a place.
Let's get rid of those vocals for a minute. Okay, so here again, I'm on the mic side. I'm, modeling the transformer. Again, we could push this a little bit more if we wanted to. Remember, these are already kind of distorted electric guitars. Okay, so we're doing a fast attack here. We're doing a fairly quick release here, a 4-to-1 ratio. We're doing about 6 dB of compression. On the EQ side here, we're taking out around 800 hertz, about 6 dB to get some of that hollowness out of there. Again, these tracks have not been treated at all. And we're doing a tiny bit of a boost at around 5K on a bell, just to give it a little bit of brightness. And then we also did a low cut filter at about 120 hertz pre the compressor. So here's before the channel strip. Before, after. Okay, so that's our electric guitars. Now if we do bass, guitars, and drums, here's kind of what we have. Before. This is with no SSL on any of the tracks. Okay, so I know when I'm turning them on and off as a group like that, you get a little bit of a click, a little bit of a delay there, a little bit of a jump in the audio. That's just natural when you're bypassing a bunch of plugins like that. But hopefully you can hear the difference. That obviously gets a little bit more brighter because we've added some top end EQ. But just more importantly, it just sounds a lot more rich. to me. And hopefully that comes across on YouTube. So this is a great plugin, and I highly recommend that if you have a Universal Audio system, that you go ahead and you take a look at this, especially if you have the legacy version, because if you compare the two, there isn't really really a comparison, because having the preamp section being mono, that's super important, and it adds a lot of more tonal character to this plugin. The other thing that I forgot to mention about this, if you have a Universal Audio system, what you can do with this new channel strip as well with our Unison technology, if you have an Apollo, is now you can record through this plugin as part of the Unison technology. So you can record through this and print it to your DAW, and make that commitment beforehand and not just have to use it at the mixing stage. You could not do that with the old version of the SSL channel strips. So all of the channel strips in Universal Audio have been updated with this Unison technology. The SSL was the final one. The Neve 88RS has already been done. The API Vision channel strip as well. All three are fantastic. All three sound vastly different from each other. And so this is a great representation of the SSL4000. And I love this. I love this a lot. I'm so glad that they did this. I'm really happy with it, and I use this a lot. So I urge you to take a look at it if you're a Universal Audio user. So I hope you found this video helpful and you enjoyed looking at the new version of the SSL4000E channel strip by Universal Audio. Again, hit that subscribe button below. Go out to Facebook and follow me there. And as always, go back to homerecordingmadeeasy.com for more tips, tricks, concepts, and training around all aspects of home recording. And until the next plugin video, this has been David with homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and I'll see you guys all soon. Thanks for watching and take care.